Hi Tamira and Physio Megan here. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about fatigue monitoring. Now I use fatigue monitoring a lot with my patients who have had maybe quite a big period out of their regular training due to injury, and we're kind of getting back into the normal swing of things. Because that first period where you're starting to really increase your training load is when we're at more risk of re-injury. So one of the tools that I use is an RPE scale. Now I think RPE has been discussed in detail in one of the other videos from the coaches. But essentially it's your rate of perceived exertion. So how hard does the session feel? Now, if you Google it, there are two types. There is like a cardio-based type, which talks about like breathlessness and things like that. And there's a strength type, which talks about repetitions in reserve. So how many more do you think you could do? When I'm doing it from a rehab perspective, I just like to keep it as simple as possible in the first stages. So I will just say to somebody, if one's easy, 10's hard, I want you to rate every rehab-y training session that we're doing at this stage. So they will do that. They will say, this was hard this day, or not hard that day, etc., etc. And they'll give it a number, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then what I ask them to do is to do a fatigue score as well. Now, we do this a few hours after we've done the exercise. So there's the effort of the actual exercise. How hard does it feel? Because this helps us to then plan the next training session. But also, how well are they recovering from that session? So again, I will use a really simple scale, 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, something like that. And if they do a session in the day or in the morning, I will ask them to rate that a couple of hours after that session. If they have a really late training session, then I might ask them to rate how they feel first thing in the morning. And this is all very individual depending on what kind of training the person does. And we will monitor that over a few weeks, because if the effort level of the exercises of the training is going up, and then and the fatigue level is going up as well, then we're increasing our risk of a re-injury. And it's just a really nice way to monitor that initial return to exercise, especially if you've had a big bout out. So I often use this with my bone stress injury clients, but really anyone who's had a big period out. And then if we start noticing these numbers fluctuate and change, and they're not kind of doing what we want them to be doing, then we think about other things. So are they sleeping enough? Big one on the sleep. Bone stress injuries often need between 7 to 9 hours of rest and recovery. So when we're starting to reintroduce that running period, are they getting an adequate sleep to allow for bone healing? But also nutrition is a big one. So if you're training for weight loss in general and things like that, often people will have injuries and then they'll cut the calories down and then reintroduce their training, but their calorie intake just isn't sufficient enough to maintain their training, and then they get really tired and they don't recover and as well as they had been before. So that might be something else that we would monitor. So just 2 tips for you guys. So RPE scale, say how hard is the actual rehab workout training that you're doing, and 2, what is your fatigue level like after training? So just 2 really simple methods that can be done to work out whether the training is too hard and whether you're recovering from it adequately. And if not, then we go into a deeper dive into the things that we might do to support that going forward. I hope you found that helpful. Fatigue monitoring is a great tool. If you have any questions, as always, leave a comment below. Other than that, guys, happy running.